Hey guys, welcome back to another Blu-ray collection video, another Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K collection video. I've been wanting to do another Blu-ray collection video since I've seen a lot of people doing Blu-ray collection videos for about over the past couple of years, and I've seen some people doing it like every single year, and I thought, hey, why not try it again? And I've been updating a lot of my Blu-rays and DVDs. I have some new shelves that I have over there, which I'll point to later on this video. And I've been wanting to do more about that, and I've been wanting to show more about the Blu-rays and DVDs I've been collecting recently, especially for this year's films that I just overall really liked. And basically, yeah, I'm going to be continuing on to get over on my Blu-ray and DVD collection video and some things that I have updated for over the past couple of months and so. And basically, yeah, so without further ado, let's get to the video. Alright, so let me see what we got. First off, for my Blu-ray and DVD collection, I have the first two Amazing Spider-Man films. I've already given you my opinion on that, and if you know, you already know. Then I have The Unholy. This is not mine, this is my brother's, and I bought this for my brother while we were on Target, and he just, it's an alright and enjoyable film, but then again, it's not a film that I could revisit again. And then I have the Lego Batman movie. And I have the 2007 TMNT film, which it's just overall really good, and it's one of my favorite Ninja Turtle films, and it's just one of my favorite films that I really love. I grew up watching this movie. I remember that we rented this movie from Blockbuster, and then I rented it again from Hollywood Video, and I just remember I had a fun time watching it, and it's just overall pretty. It's just overall pretty great. It's kind of sad that it didn't do well, and plans for sequels of this film, but I'm very excited that we're going to get a new TMNT film, even though it's not going to be having the same animation style as this film, but hey, it'll still be fun, and I can't wait for that movie to come out. Batman, Death of the Family. And then, of course, I have the god-awful live-action Resident Evil film, which is by far one of the worst video game to film adaptations ever, and it doesn't really stay true to the video games, and it adds like that Matrix S type style for this movie, because the Matrix was pretty popular around that time. And yeah, I mean, Mila Jankovic, she's alright as Alice, but then again, I really wish that she could have got more lines, but you know, yeah, I mean, Alice should have been an interesting character, but, well, yeah. And Michelle Rodriguez, she was alright in this movie. Then I have the two SpongeBob films on DVD and on Blu-ray. One is on DVD and one is on Blu-ray. I have SpongeBob SquarePants the movie and SpongeBob movie Sponge Underwater. Both films are just overall really good. I overall just really love these movies. I like the sequel a little bit more. The sequel is a bit more entertaining. I do not have the third SpongeBob film because I refuse to get that because of how bad it really was, and it just yeah. And while the first movie, it was just overall pretty good. It was entertaining and enjoyable in moments, and it has like some of the memeable things that they have. But yeah. Then I have Lego, The Adventures of Clutch Powers. It is overall just a pretty fun movie. I remember that we got this. I remember watching this on my Lego club as a kid. Back when I was in 2nd grade. I remember I had a fun time watching it, and then I rewatched it again and again when we rented this movie from Blockbuster, and then I got this movie from Toys R Us, and it's just overall just pretty. It's just overall just a pretty fun film. I just overall just really love it. It's good at best, and this was back before the Lego movie. Then I got this movie, Lego Batman the Movie, DC Superheroes Unite. Then I got both Charlie's Angels films. Like, I have the first one and I have the sequel. The first one was good. The second one, enjoyable, but it wasn't really that great. The first TMNT movie. I do not have TMNT 2 or TMNT 3. This movie was overall just really good. It is a childhood classic. It stays true to the Mirage comics, and it focuses more on basically on the Mirage comics and then the 80s cartoon, the 80s and 90s cartoon around that time, the 80s cartoon in general. But it's just overall pretty good, and it's one of my favorite childhood films. And I have it on VHS. I still have it on VHS, but I updated it to DVD because this is the only thing I could find on DVD. And I couldn't find a Blu Ray, obviously, but yeah. But anyways, it's a really good movie. I definitely enjoyed it. Then I have the 4-movie collection Men in Black films, which includes Men in Black 1, Men in Black 2, and Men in Black 3, and of course Men in Black International. And looking back at Men in Black International, it wasn't as good as I remember that it used to be as a kid back in high school. Then again, I was in high school, and I was only 16 when I first saw that movie. Yeah, and that was back before COVID-19 had happened. Then COVID-19 hit, and I decided to rewatch the 4th movie. I rewatched all 3 of the Men in Black films. I didn't rewatch Men in Black International again. Men in Black International could have done much better. The first Men in Black movie, it was a classic. It was overall just really good. The second one, while nowhere near as good as the first, it's still enjoyable. It's decently entertaining. And then the third one, a great conclusion to Agent J and Agent K's story, and it's just overall pretty good. Haven't seen these movies. I do recommend to give it a watch, but yeah. Now I got these, Lego Ninjago and Lego Legends of Chima. They should have been on the TV section, but I don't have enough room for the TV section. Then, of course, I have the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Then I have Bionicle 1 and Bionicle 2 and Bionicle 3. I really enjoy 3 of these movies. I remember I rented these movies from Blockbuster. I remember I had a fun time renting these movies. I remember enjoying them, and I remember asking my dad, Dad, I want some Bionicles. And he gave me like a huge bucket load of Bionicles for Christmas. And I was in 2nd grade around that time. And yeah, these were pretty enjoyable, and they still are enjoyable. I love the slipcover of this. I still have it, and yeah. And I overall just really enjoyed this film, and it's still one of my favorite films to date. And yeah, I miss the old days. I miss all the nostalgia of these movies. Then I have, one second here. Then I have the Blade trilogy. I have all 3 of the Blade movies, Blade 1 and Blade 2 and Blade 3. I overall really liked the first movie. I thought that the first movie was enjoyable. The second one was a lot more entertaining. Ron Perlman does a really great job on his performances, and Guillermo del Toro, obviously he does a really amazing job with the directing of this movie. And I think this was one of his first directorials, but yeah. Blade Trinity. This one was, yeah, it wasn't as entertaining as I remember. And look, Blockbuster. Yep. Then of course I have Free Guy on Blu Ray. Free Guy was entertaining. It was enjoyable for what it was. I overall just really loved the movie. I really liked the story and the characters. It has some unique twists and turns, and it has some pretty interesting things about the story. and it's just overall pretty good. Ryan Reynolds does a really good job on playing the main lead guy, blue shirt guy. Jodie Comer does a really good job on playing Molotov Girl, and the character outside of the video game that they were playing. And basically, guys, it's just overall entertaining, and I still enjoy it. It's still an entertaining film that I really love, and it's an entertaining film that my parents and I really, really love. Then, of course, I have Small Soldiers on DVD. Pretty entertaining. It's really enjoyable. It's like a mix between Toy Story and Gremlins, albeit much more darker, and it has like a PG-13 rating. Birds of Prey. Big Hero 6, my only Disney Blu Ray that I have, and the only Disney Blu Ray that I ever collected. I didn't really had any Disney Blu Rays as a kid, mainly because they were a little expensive back then, and because I didn't have any money as a kid. But yeah. Then of course I got 3 of the X-Men movies on DVD. Oh, and here's an interesting one that I have here. I have Bionicle: The Legend Reborn on DVD. I remember getting this for the first time. I remember I actually enjoyed this more than the 3 previous films. I remember hearing about this movie, and I didn't really have a chance to get it because I was very young back then. That wasn't until when my parents found it in Hollywood Video, and they rented it for me at Hollywood Video, and I just had a fun time watching it. And yeah, I still have like one of those second grade memories that I had fun watching as a kid. And yeah, it's been a while since I've actually seen it, and I haven't really been able to revisit it for a while. Then I have The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises on DVD. Then I have one of my favorite life movies and one of my favorite films. I think that it's really entertaining, In Her Shoes. Entertaining, it's really enjoyable. I really like the performances from Cameron Diaz and Tony Connolly, if I'm pronouncing the name right. I'm sorry, I don't think I'm pronouncing the name right, but I really like the performances. I really like how Cameron Diaz plays this woman who has dyslexia, who has a hard time to read. And yeah, it's based on a book that I heard of. I never read the book, but I have seen this movie a few times, especially in high school, and I remember I had a fun time watching it. And yeah. Ghostbusters. What can I say? It's a classic. Do not cross the streams. The Help. It's entertaining for what it is. And of course I have Space Jam. Guilty pleasure film and childhood classic. It's just childhood. X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yeah, if you know, you know. The 2003 Hulk film. If you know, you know. And then this. Wow, I remember that I got this back when I subscribed to Lego Magazine. Back when I had Lego Magazine, and I got this, and it was just pretty fun, and I just really enjoyed it. And then of course I got Lego Star Wars films. Stuart Little the movie. I got this from a Treasure Prize box back in 2nd grade. I have no idea why I own this movie, so yeah. And the case is really bad because I accidentally opened it like that, and it was really hard to open. Alright, so I know that there are not a lot of Blu-rays around there, and I will talk about some of the movies that I have collected. over there on the other side, including the TV shows on Blu-ray and DVD. But in the meantime, we're going to be focusing more on this side. So, yeah, without further ado, let's start with this one, The Martian, one of my old-time favorite films. I remember seeing it back in 7th grade. I remember I've seen it again in 8th grade for a science class for a homework assignment that we had to do. I remember seeing that again. And I remember watching it again, and I remember I had a fun time enjoying it. I really like the performances from Matt Damon, and it's just overall just a really enjoyable film. The Imitation Game. Pretty good movie, one of my favorite films. I really liked the performances from Benedict Cumberbatch and Keira Knightley, where Benedict Cumberbatch plays like this man who made a computer, and also plays like this struggling man who is struggling with his sexuality. It's a really good movie, and it's pretty emotional. And Keira Knightley does a really good job on playing like the supportive role, and just basically, yeah. And it won 8 Academy Award nominations back in 2014. And yeah, it's just really enjoyable. Sisters. I have not been able to watch this movie yet, so. And I got some steelbooks over here, but yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to show you some other things. Let me just put this. Then, of course, I have This Is the End. One of my favorite films, and just one of my favorite buddy apocalypse dark humor films. This is absolutely pretty amazing. I overall just really like how dark it really is, and the humor is just pretty funny. They don't make these types of movies like this anymore, and God, I miss those old days. I mean, I really like the performances from Seth Rogen, James Franco, and Jonah Hill, and Danny McBride, and Craig Robinson, and Jay Baruchel. And they did a really amazing job with this film. Coraline. Classic, man. It's a classic. And for other movies I have Baby Driver on a Blu Ray Steelbook. One of my old-time favorite films from Edgar Wright. It's brilliant. It is well directed, well shot. The car chase scenes are just well shot and well edited very well. The action is just well edited and edited very well. I really like the premise of Baby. He is he's one of my all-time favorite characters. I can actually relate to his personal struggles and everything like that. And basically, yeah. But overall, it's just a really great movie. It's absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you give it a watch. Then, of course, I have The Other Woman, one of the most underrated films to date. And I thought that this was overall just really enjoyable. It's by far enjoyable. I just absolutely really loved it. Great performances from Cameron Diaz, Leslie Mann, and Kate Upton. And just an overall really fun movie. Really great movie. Well, not great, but not perfect either. But it's still a really fun movie. And I have Your Highness, a guilty pleasure of a movie. Really funny. Just really awesome. I laugh my ass off whenever I hear Danny McBride and James Franco and Natalie Portman doing their performances, and it's basically, yeah, absolutely funny as shit. Let's Be Cops, another guilty pleasure of a movie. The Hangover, one of the best comedies I've ever seen, and one of my favorite comedies of all time, and brilliantly directed by Todd Phillips. And it's just absolutely wonderful. I just overall just really love it. I haven't seen the sequels, and I don't own the sequels, and I just refuse to basically watch the sequels because of I heard not so good things about them. And yeah. Gone Girl? Oh, wait. My bad. Then of course I have Gone Girl on Blu Ray. Yep. Gone Girl, really great movie. Fun film. I absolutely really enjoyed the movie. It's absolutely pretty wonderful. And if you haven't seen it, I do recommend you give it a watch. Then we have sus title, the terrible iPad commercial, sex tape. This is like one of the weakest comedies I've ever seen. It's not terrible, to say the least. I've seen far more worse comedies than this, but in other words, it's not bad, but it could have done better, or it could have done worse, but yeah. And Plus, the iPad product placement was very weird for a Sony movie because, then again, this is a Sony movie. I thought Sony would use some product placement in their films like I've seen in most of their films, but iPads? Really? Yep. I have Despicable Me on Blu Ray. I thought it was overall really good. I thought that the first movie was good. I thought the second movie was good. Not as great as the first. It doesn't have like that story as the first movie, but hey, it's still alright at best. But, yeah. I do not have the sequel, though, and I do not have the third movie. I refuse to get that because it's not as good as I thought it was, but, yeah. Despicable Me overall, just a really great movie. I thought it was a fun film. Not perfect, but good anyway. And, of course, I have some comic book movies I really like to show, which is Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2 on Blu Ray. And then, of course, I have Logan on Blu Ray and 4K. Hellboy, I do not have Hellboy 2, The Golden Army yet. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, beloved classic. I do not have Across the Spider-Verse yet, but I'm hoping to get it pretty soon. And then, of course, I have Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage. Power Rangers 2017. Really great movie. Really fun film. I absolutely really enjoy it. Oh, hold on. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, one of my all-time favorite films from Edgar Wright, and by far one of my favorite movies of all time. Absolutely wonderful. I overall just really enjoy it. For a guy that loves anime and comic books, manga, and video games like old school Nintendo and Sega, and just Nintendo and Sega games and other type of games in general, including fighting games. Really great movie. Fighting games like Street Fighter and Tekken and Mortal Kombat. Watchmen. Save this for later. And of course I have Unbreakable on 4K Blu-ray. A really great movie, one of the most underrated superhero films I've ever seen, and just one of by far my favorite superhero movies of all time, and one of my favorite films from M. Night Shyamalan, and just one of my favorite movies in general. Absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's enjoyable. Chronicle, one of my all-time favorite superhero movies, and just one of my all-time favorite films to date. It's just sad that the director Josh Trank would later go on to direct the most god-awful adaptation of the Fantastic Four, which is Fan4stick. But anyways, with this movie, it's really good, and it shows the potential of Josh Trank for how he could be good at directing with some films, and I feel like that he was not ready to direct Fantastic Four and all that, but yeah. Then I have Catwoman Hunted. I think this is an anime film, but yeah, a DC anime film. And it has like an anime style towards it, but yeah, I haven't really seen it yet. I haven't really opened it yet. Constantine, House of Mystery. House of Mystery, yeah. I have no opinion on it, but yeah. Glass. A great conclusion to the M. Night Shyamalan superhero trilogy that he worked on. I have no idea what the name was again. It's kind of confusing. Rough Night. Rough Night is basically like The Hangover, but instead of having actors like Ed Helms and Bradley Cooper and Zach Galifianakis, you get to have actresses like Scarlett Johansson, Kate McKinnon, Jillian Bell, Eileen Glenzer, and Zoe Kravitz. Which I forgot, Zoe Kravitz was actually in this movie. But yeah, it's overall really funny. It's kind of an enjoyable film. It's like The Hangover, but with some more, with a little bit more twist in it, and of course with starting a female all cast, and basically, yeah, absolutely enjoyable. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. What it was. I don't know what this is. I haven't really seen this yet. I've seen trailers of this movie, but I haven't actually seen this movie yet. Come on. This. The Interview. Remember this movie that gained a lot of controversy? It didn't really deserve it, but it's overall an enjoyable movie. It's a good movie. It's a great comedy. And this is where it started the Sony hack. I Have Wonder. A really great movie. Truly inspirational. One of my all-time favorite films. I cried in this movie because, yeah, it's just such a relatable movie. I can relate to the main characters' struggles and everything like that because as a kid I had a hard time fitting in class. Like, I had a hard time fitting in school like most kids do. But, yeah. It's such a really heartfelt film that I think you guys should watch. I remember reading the book as a kid, and I remember me and my mom read it, and then I remember I watched this movie, and it was really great, really sad, and really heartfelt, really enjoyable. It's a movie that will definitely get you crying, and will get you happy. Yeah. And of course, I have the two Sonic films. I have Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic 2, which I really love these movies. These movies are by far one of my favorite video game adaptation films, and just by far one of my favorite video game movies out there. They are just really great, and I just really love them. I enjoy the sequel more than the first one, in my opinion. The sequel just overall has a much more bigger impact than the first one. Not to say that the first one was bad, but it could have done better. But the sequel, I enjoy. Then I have Mortal Kombat 2021. Absolutely wonderful. I overall just really love this movie. Nowhere near as good as the original from 1995, but it still is pretty good overall, and I just absolutely really enjoy it. I cannot wait for the sequel when it comes out, of course. Monster Hunter. I have no idea what this movie is, other than that this is directed by the same guy who directed the god-awful live-action Resident Evil movies. Serenity. One of the worst films ever made, and one of the most shittiest video game movies out there. Pokemon Detective Pikachu. One of the best video game movies ever. Really good overall. Just absolutely wonderful. Not perfect by any means, but overall just really good. Uncharted. I absolutely really loved this movie. I thought it was enjoyable. It wasn't perfect by any means, and it does have flaws, but I just overall just really enjoy it. And yeah, as you all know, I'm a huge fan of Uncharted. I've been a fan of Uncharted since as long as I can remember, ever since I first played the video games. And I just overall just really love how they adapted, sort of. But then again, they could have done much better. Then we got Gamer. And this is a Blockbuster exclusive. As you guys can see here, hold on. Hopefully the camera works very well. Yep. This is it. I heard that this was one of the worst video game movies out there, and which I can definitely see why. I've seen this a bit with my brother, but I haven't seen the entire movie of it. But, yeah. Tomb Raider. The first two Tomb Raider films. I love the first one. Second one, not bad, but it could have done better. Oh. Then we got Cloverfield. Brilliant indie film around this time. I mean, this was like one of the most biggest January films out there, despite that January, I believe, was a cursed month for movies to be released. But, hey, this was still really good overall, and it just builds up to the hype. Overall, just a really great movie. The Dark Tower. It's like guilty pleasure of a movie to watch, per se. It's something that I just overall just really enjoy from the book adaptation of Stephen King's The Dark Tower. And of course, I have the Alien quadrilogy, which has Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. This does not include Prometheus or Alien Covenant or the AVP films, which I have the AVP films over here, but we'll get to that later. Alien, I've really liked. This is one of my all-time favorite horror movies and one of my all-time favorite sci-fi films out there. Aliens, one of my all-time favorite horror, action, and sci-fi films. Just absolutely brilliant. Brilliantly directed by James Cameron. Alien 3, underrated and it's enjoyable at best. Alien Resurrection, one of the worst of the Alien trilogy. Terrible. Then I got Predator, the Predator trilogy, of course, which includes Predator, Predator 2, and Predators. This does not include The Predator from 2018, which is the worst, and this does also not include the AVP films, which, again, I have them over here, but we'll talk about that later. The first Predator movie I just overall really liked. It is enjoyable. It is one of the best action films I've ever seen, and one of my all-time favorite action films that I've watched as a kid over and over again. Just one of my all-time favorite action films in general. And Predator 2, while nowhere near as good as the first movie, it is still enjoyable. It is still really, really good. I overall just really enjoy Predator 2, and I absolutely just really enjoy it. And Predators, I thought it was good. Not great, but it was good whatsoever. I just overall just really enjoy Predators. And the characters were likable, but some were forgettable though. Then of course I got the Alien vs. Predator trilogy, which includes AVP, Alien vs. Predator, and Alien vs. Predator Requiem. Alien vs. Predator, guilty pleasure of a movie. Alien vs. Predator Requiem, not that good. And just really dark. Not tonally, but like the screen is like really dark and you can barely see. And just basically, yeah. The Lighthouse. I haven't seen this movie yet. Get Out, a really great movie, one of my all-time favorite horror movies, brilliantly directed by Jordan Peele, and yeah, just a brilliant horror movie that I just overall really love watching. Cabin in the Woods, one of the most underrated horror films out there, and one of the most underrated films in general. Absolutely, really great movie. I just overall really enjoy it. It's really great overall. If you haven't seen Cabin in the Woods, I do recommend you give it a watch. Also, Chris Hemsworth and Anna Hutchinson was in this movie. If you guys don't know who Anna Hutchinson, she plays Lily, aka Jungle Fury, Yellow Ranger from Power Rangers Jungle Fury. Freddy vs. Jason, guilty slasher horror film, seeing two iconic characters in horror film history battling with one another. Like Alien vs. Predator. This came out before Alien vs. Predator. I think this came out in 2003. A Quiet Place, Part 1 and Part 2. Really great movies. The first one I will just say is really good. Second one, while nowhere near as good as the first, it still is pretty great. We Summon the Darkness, a really great horror movie. One of my all-time favorite horror films, and one of my all-time favorite indie films, and one of my all-time favorite movies in general. Absolutely wonderful. I will really enjoy it. Halloween 2018. I don't know what to say. This is my brother's, so. Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. By far one of my all-time favorite horror movies, alongside with Alien and Aliens and Cabin in the Woods, and basically, yeah. But these ones are overall just really great. Brilliantly directed by Sam Raimi. The first one was overall pretty good, and it was pretty dark. The second one, while it was dark, it has some comedy elements in it, but it's just overall pretty cool. And I just really like how Sam Raimi just well directed these films, and it's just absolutely pretty wonderful. I do not have Army of Darkness on Blu Ray. And I have Jason Rising, a Friday the 13th fan film. I got this from my trip to Rose City Comic Con, and I remember I talked to the director about it. He seemed like a pretty cool guy, by the way, and I was lucky to get this for about $25. I believe that if they sell these, it costs like $99 or maybe more. But yeah, it's just absolutely a great, wonderful horror fan film, and one of the greatest Friday the 13th fan films I've ever seen. Just one of my favorite fan films in general. If you haven't seen this fan film, I do recommend you give it a watch, as it's already out on YouTube, or probably go buy it on Blu-ray if you can find it for a really good price. But yeah, they also had it on VHS and on DVD. Creed. What can I say? It's a great movie, and a great entry for the Rocky franchise, and a great return too. The Gift. I haven't seen this one yet. Knives Out. I heard some people are saying that it is a good movie. I haven't been able to watch it because, well, of the overhype of it. There are some films that I don't really like. But, yeah, I haven't been able to see this yet, but I'm hoping to watch this soon. I do not have the sequel or the spin-off. However, then again, I'm not really a huge fan of Knives Out. Then, of course, I have the Blade Runner trilogy, which is Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. The first Blade Runner was overall pretty good, absolutely beloved classic, and one of the most important sci-fi films out there. Blade Runner 2049, pretty good sequel, and a great follow-up to the first movie. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I even remembered that there was like this short anime film, which is directed by Shinichiro Watanabe of Cowboy Bebop fame and Samurai Champloo and Space Dandy. Just overall pretty cool. And yeah. Due Date. It's an absolute funny film. I overall just really like it. I like the performances from Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis, and it's directed by the same guy who directed The Hangover, Todd Phillips, and the guy who directed The Joker. Overall, pretty cool. RoboCop. Beloved classic. One of my all-time favorite action movies and sci-fi movies to date. Absolutely wonderful. And I have one of my favorite James Bond movies, Casino Royale. Really great movie. Overall, really enjoy it. One of my favorite Bond films to date. Absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen this one, I do recommend it. If you obviously haven't seen it, since it's a really great James Bond movie. Not as good as Skyfall. I know there are some people that prefer Casino Royale or Skyfall. I mean, I like both, but yeah. Skyfall, really great action film. Absolutely wonderful. It's basically like the Dark Knight of James Bond, which I can definitely see why. No Time to Die. I haven't seen this yet, and I'm debating about whether I should watch this or not, but I'm definitely planning to see this. This is Inception, one of my all-time favorite films from Christopher Nolan. Absolutely wonderful, mind-bending. It's pretty great. Ford v Ferrari, one of my all-time favorite films from James Mangold, and just by far one of my all-time favorite films in general. Absolutely wonderful. I overall just really love this movie. Very enjoyable. Interstellar, really great movie, even though I haven't opened this yet, but I've already seen the movie. I've already know about everything about this movie. Moonfall. That's my brother's, so. Oh, and of course, I have the John Wick trilogy, which includes John Wick Chapter 1, John Wick Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4 on the Blu Ray and 4K Blu Ray. Now, I've already talked about the first 3 films. I've overall really liked the first 3 films. The first one was overall pretty good. I absolutely really loved the first one. The second one was overall pretty good too. The third one was pretty good, but it could have done much better. But I enjoyed the fourth one. I've seen this twice in the theater already. I absolutely really love it. The fourth one is one of my favorite films to ever date, and it's also a really great conclusion to the trilogy, even though that there might be some more sequels coming up along the way, and there's also a spin-off that is coming on Peacock, which I will talk about that when we get there. But anyways, yeah, a really great ending to John Wick. Just overall, just a really great film. I also really love it. One of my favorite films of this year. It's just absolutely pretty cool, and I also really like how they pull a bebop ending. They pull a Cowboy Bebop ending towards this. Since, if you guys don't remember the ending of Cowboy Bebop, Spike fights Vicious, and Vicious dies, and Spike won, and he goes out with a bang, and then, of course, he dies on the stairways. This basically pulls off the ending of Cowboy Bebop, and I overall just really like how they pull off the ending of Cowboy Bebop. I mean, John Wick is basically like Spike Spiegel, and Spike Spiegel came before John Wick. But yeah, overall, just a really great movie. One of my favorite action films to date. Absolutely wonderful. I just really love this one. I got the Mission Impossible trilogy, which includes the first Mission Impossible film, and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and Mission Impossible Fallout. By far one of my favorite films of the Mission Impossible trilogy. They are by far one of my favorite films to date, and they're absolutely really enjoyable. I like the first one better. The first one was overall just really enjoyable. It's overall pretty great. And I've overall really liked the fourth one. It's overall pretty cool. Absolutely really wonderful, and I really like how it was brilliantly directed by Brad Bird, who directed The Incredibles and who directed The Iron Giant. Absolutely really cool. And Fallout, really great. And yeah, then I got both 21 and 22 Jump Street, one of my all-time favorite comedies and one of my favorite action films and favorite action comedy films to date. Absolutely pretty wonderful, brilliantly directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and just pretty wonderful films that I've loved watching, and I'm going to basically watch these films over and over again. Arrival, overall just a really great movie. I thought it was a fun movie to watch, and by far one of the most saddest films to ever seen. It's really sad. Be prepared to cry, by the way. But brilliant performances from Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, and yeah. The Iron Giant, one of my all-time favorite animated films, and one of my favorite animated films to date, and one of my favorite movies in general. Pretty underrated, but absolutely wonderful, and I just overall just really love it. Great directing from Brad Bird, great animation, really drawn characters and everything like that. Just absolutely wonderful. It's overall great. It's too bad it bombed at the box office. Morbius. Yeah, that's right, I got Morbius. The Batman. Then I have American Graffiti. A classic, and this was George Lucas's first directorial before he would go on to direct Star Wars, and when he would help with Steven Spielberg on the Indiana Jones trilogy. Absolutely pretty cool. Overall, just a pretty fun film that I think it's definitely worth watching, and a classic from the 1950s, I believe. I really like the 50s setting and all that. The directing is overall pretty good. Really great for a director that started out small. Really great for George Lucas himself, the man behind Star Wars, the man before directing Star Wars. The Ratchet and Clank movie. Yeah, I love Ratchet and Clank. It's one of my all-time favorite video games, and seeing this movie, I will admit, there were some things that I didn't really like about this movie, but it's an enjoyable movie overall, and I thought I enjoyed it. Tomb Raider 2018. Enjoyable and fun for the Square Enix Tomb Raider games. And, yeah, probably better than the first two Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider films. Pixels. This was my brother's, but a really great, fun, sometimes funny but not so funny classic for video games. There are some moments where it doesn't make any sense, but yeah. I got Wolf of Wall Street on. I got the Wolf of Wall Street on the Blu Ray. Absolutely pretty wonderful, pretty great too. But yeah, and one of the best films by Martin Scorsese. Land, very underrated film. Another underrated film, Bad Times at the El Royale. Bad Times at the El Royale. A pretty great movie. It has like that Quentin Tarantino-esque type style that I've seen before, but overall just pretty good. Absolutely wonderful. Dark Knight on Blu Ray Steelbook. The Suicide Squad. Brilliantly directed by James Gunn. "21 Bridges." I thought it was brilliantly performed by Chadwick Boseman, and I thought it was overall just a really great movie. 1917. A fun enough film. I really like the POV shots in this. It's overall pretty cool, and it actually fits very well for the film because it feels like that you are in the war for this film, and it just feels pretty chilling. Just feels so chilling. Clerks, one of my all-time favorite indie films, and one of my all-time favorite films to date. Brilliantly directed by Kevin Smith. Absolutely wonderful. Really funny too. It has some great humor. It has overall great characters, and it has a great story. Absolutely pretty wonderful. Even though it is shot in low budget type, and it's basically, yeah, it's a low budget movie, but overall, it's just overall pretty cool. And it just shows that you don't need a bigger story. You don't need like a big budget to tell a story and all that. And you just use whatever you can for this. Absolutely pretty wonderful. I overall just really like this movie. Mallrats. While nowhere near as good as Clerks, it still is pretty enjoyable, and it still is pretty good at that. Nowhere near as great or excellent as Clerks, but still pretty cool. And even though that Kevin Smith had to apologize for the way how he directed this movie, Kevin Smith shouldn't really apologize for how he directed this movie. If anything, Michael Bay should have apologized for how he directed the Transformers movie. Or even better, Paul W.S. Anderson should have apologized for how he directed the shitty live-action Resident Evil films. But overall, Mallrats is a pretty good movie. I absolutely really enjoy it. I really like the Stan Lee cameo in it, and I like Michael Rooker as the villain. And I like the performances. And I also really like seeing Jay and Silent Bob again in this film. And they overall just have some really goofy, scenes and some goofy one-liners. Some really awesome one-liners, and basically, yeah. Absolutely pretty wonderful. And really cool pop culture references too, alongside with the first Clerks movie. And basically, yeah. And of course, we got Chasing Amy. One of my all-time favorite romantic comedy films, and one of my all-time favorite films, and one of my favorite films from Kevin Smith's film debut, and one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies and VSQ films out there. Absolutely wonderful. I overall really like this movie. It has like a deeper meaning into it with sexuality and all that, but overall, it does a really great job on being more mature on sexuality and everything like that, and it's just absolutely really wonderful. This is overall a pretty great movie. A really fun enough film that I think is definitely enjoyable. It's definitely enjoyable to watch. And if you're trying to see a rom-com like this, I think this is a must-watch. It's absolutely pretty cool. Overall, just really great. Really great performances from Ben Affleck and Jason Lee. And wait, Jason Lee? I think that's the guy, but I'm not sure. And also great performances from Jason Mewes as well, and the lady who played Amy, the main title character of the movie, and basically, yeah, absolutely really cool. And then of course I have Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. One of my all-time favorite comedies out there, and one of my favorite films, easily one of my favorite films from Kevin Smith's directorial debut, alongside with Chasing Amy, alongside with the first Clerks film, the second Clerks film, and now recently Clerks 3. Overall, it's just really good. It's a really good movie. Absolutely funny. It's absolutely enjoyable. I just laugh my ass off whenever I hear Jay and Silent Bob scream. But what also makes this movie really good is basically just the characters just doing whatever shit they're doing. And basically, yeah. Absolutely wonderful. And some really good pop culture references here, too. Clerks 2. Really good movie. Overall, really great sequel. And by far, probably better than the first. And absolutely really wonderful. If you haven't seen this movie, I do recommend you give it a watch. Although I recommend you watch the first movie first before you see this movie. Basically, yeah. And then we have Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Not as good as Strikes Back, but it's enjoyable at best. Nowhere near as good as Strike Back, but enjoyable. Fanboys, one of my all-time favorite underrated films, and just by far one of the best Star Wars movies in general. Despite that, it's technically not a Star Wars movie. It's basically a Star Wars movie made by Star Wars fans for Star Wars fans. It's absolutely pretty wonderful. I overall just really liked about how they are going to watch Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, because their friend is dying, and his last wish before he leaves this world is to watch Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And yeah, really good overall. Hot Tub Time Machine, one of my all-time favorite comedies. Absolutely pretty funny. It's just a movie that makes me laugh all the time, especially where that guy's like, well, I obviously cannot say it because of YouTube's certain community guidelines, but overall, it's a really great movie. Great comedy. One of my favorite comedies. Absolutely a movie that can make me laugh. Whenever I have like a rough day or so, I try to watch some of the comedies I own, and this movie makes me laugh. Oh, wait a minute. Then, of course, we have Superbad, one of my all-time favorite high school comedies and one of my all-time favorite films ever. I remember seeing this movie back when I was in high school. I remember I watched this movie when I was in my senior year of high school. I seen this movie as a kid, but I wasn't allowed to watch it because, well, it was rated R. I've seen it a bit, but yeah. But I've seen this movie, and I watched it, and I absolutely just really enjoy it. It was absolutely pretty cool. It was absolutely pretty great. And this is overall really funny. I really like the performances with Jonah Hill and Michael Cera. Really great performances. Absolutely really, really great performances. Especially with Emma Stone and McLovin himself. Christopher Peretz, I believe. Yeah. Then I have Easy A. A really great movie. A really great movie that I really like. I thought it was gonna be like super bad, but it's kind of a bit more like Mean Girls. But it's cool though, and it basically it basically has like this really cool story with focusing on Emma Stone's character and basically some of the problems, especially about living the lies and everything like that, rumors and all that, etc. But yeah, I thought it was overall just a really interesting movie. I thought it was really cool and really great. Probably not my favorite, but still good. 12 Mighty Warriors. Oh my god, what an absolute underrated film from 2020. Absolutely underrated. I have no idea why nobody talked about this movie, but it's just absolutely underrated. It's one of the best sports movies I've ever watched. And it's too bad that this movie didn't gain as much attention as it should have. I will talk about this in another video for my underrated film reviews. Someday. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I don't know what to say about this movie. Mean Girls. It's classic. It's classic. The Big Sick. Really good film. Absolutely really enjoyable. I've watched this movie when I was in my migration and belonging class, and I remember I actually had a fun time watching this movie. It was great. It was absolutely wonderful. I overall really like the performances from Kumail Nanjiani. I'm sorry if I butcher his name. Sorry for butchering your name. But hey, it's overall just a really good movie overall. Ted. Absolutely good. I do not have the sequel. I wish I had the sequel, but yeah. I might get the sequel someday when I get the chance. Good Boys. Moneyball. I heard it's really good. I haven't been able to watch this yet, but I heard it's good. Ben Affleck 4-movie collection, which includes Live by Night, The Accountant, Argo, and The Town. I've already know Argo. I heard that it won 3 Academy Awards, and The Town. I heard that it's good, but well, I don't know if it is actually good. I heard about it, but I don't really remember about too much about The Town. But yeah, I should definitely watch these. I haven't been able to watch all these. I haven't been able to unwrap this yet. Transformers the movie. Really great movie. One of my all-time favorite animated films and one of my all-time favorite movies. And by far one of my favorite Transformers movies. It's a beloved classic. It's absolutely wonderful. I got to rewatch this movie back in the theater back in 2021 for its 30th anniversary. And I remember I had a fun time watching it. It was overall just a really great movie and I absolutely really enjoy it. And of course we got the 3 Michael Bay Transformers films I own on Blu Ray. Like I have the first Transformers movie, Revenge of the Fallen, and Dark of the Moon. Enjoyable films. I've overall just really enjoyed them. I loved the first movie more. I thought that the first movie was really good. Sequel, while nowhere near as good as the first, it's still enjoyable. Third one I thought was great at best, but not good. Not good as the first. Not enjoyable as the first two, but still good. And still enjoyable. And of course, we have Terminator 2. Absolutely wonderful. Greatest action film of all time. One of my favorite action movies in general. Then I have the Hunger Games movies. I enjoyed these films. But, yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm gonna try to talk about them someday in the near future. But who knows? I might make a video out of it. And of course, I have the G.I. Joe films. Like I have G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra and G.I. Joe Retaliation. Really enjoyable films. Not good, but they are really enjoyable. And enjoyable along with the Michael Bay Transformers films around that time. The Godfather Part 1 and The Godfather Part 2. Jurassic Park. And I also forgot that I have Jurassic Park in 4K Blu Ray. Yep. Jurassic Park is by far one of my all-time favorite films from Steven Spielberg's directorial category. It's absolutely by far one of my favorite movies ever made. And I rewatched the movie recently in theaters and I absolutely really enjoyed it. And it's still one of my favorite movies to this day. It's absolutely wonderful. It's one of the most childhood films that I've watched as a kid. Absolutely really enjoyable. The Lost World. Only bought this because, well, it had a good Blu Ray cover. While nowhere near as good as the first two, yeah. I like it because of the Blu Ray cover. I'm gonna put this back here. Short Circuit 1 and Short Circuit 2. Both are childhood classics. Both are my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely really love them. I really love the first one a bit more. The first one overall has like a lot of heart and charm into it. The second one, I thought it was overall pretty good. Nowhere near as good as the first, but still really good nonetheless, and I absolutely really enjoy it. The really cool, awesome Resident Evil movies. I have Resident Evil Vendetta on Blu Ray, and I also have Resident Evil Dead Island. I recently got this. I have not been able to see this yet. I didn't really have time because I am pretty busy with film analysis class, and basically, yeah. I will talk about these eventually someday when we will have the time. For my favorite movies of all time, this is by far one of my favorite anime films of all time, Akira. By far one of the best sci-fi and one of the best and most important anime films and foreign movies and sci-fi films ever made. This heavily inspired the cyberpunk genre, both inside and outside of the cyberpunk genre, and it also inspired animation in general. This is absolutely pretty cool. I really like this anime, and I really like this movie. This movie's overall pretty cool. It's mind-boggling. It's overall pretty good. It has some really great action, and the iconic bike chase scene is overall pretty cool. Everything about this movie is amazing, from the look, the visuals, the animation, and for a movie that was made back in 1986 or 1987, I believe, the animation still holds up well to this day, and it's absolutely pretty impressive. The art style is pretty cool. The voice acting is pretty cool, especially for the English dub. There were two versions of the English dub that were released. There was the streamlined dub, the one that was released on VHS, and I believe on DVD, if they ever did. And then there was the Pioneer dub, which is this dub, the dub that we all know, the Pioneer dub, before it would later be given to Funimation, and Funimation would later put this on, will later re-release this on Blu Ray and 4K Blu Ray. But yeah, you haven't seen this movie, where the hell have you been living all this time? Just watch this movie, it's amazing. And of course I have the original Ghost in the Shell film. By far one of my favorite cyberpunk and sci-fi futuristic film ever. It heavily inspired films like The Matrix, and heavily inspired films like Avatar, and it heavily inspired the sci-fi and cyberpunk genre in general. It's absolutely pretty cool. It's pretty great. If you haven't seen this movie, I do recommend to give it a watch. And of course I have Neighbors. I do not have Neighbors 2 yet on Blu Ray. I am planning to get it at some point, but yeah. In the meantime, I only got Neighbors. But yeah, it's a pretty funny movie, and it's a movie I would like to watch for shits and giggles. Of course, I have the Cornetto trilogy, which includes Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and of course, there is The World's End. I love, out of all of them, I think I love Hot Fuzz even more. It's by far one of my favorite action cop movies out there, and it's one of my favorite cop movies in general. Absolutely wonderful. Really love this one. And yeah. I have not seen World's End yet. I heard some good things about it though, and I do plan on trying to watch this at some point, but yeah. Have the Star Trek Kelvin Timeline trilogy on Blu Ray, which includes Star Trek 2009, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Star Trek Beyond. The 2009 Star Trek movie, I absolutely love. It is by far one of my favorite sci-fi films out there. It is by far one of my favorite films ever. It's absolutely pretty cool. I overall just really like it. Into Darkness, while nowhere near as good as 2009, it's still as entertaining and it's still as enjoyable. I thought I enjoyed it. Star Trek Beyond, absolutely pretty cool. By far one of my favorite of the third Star Trek films. Pretty cool. My favorite of the trilogy. But yeah, absolutely wonderful. Of course, I have the Skywalker saga of Star Wars. I have the entirety of the Skywalker saga on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, and basically, yeah. Like, I have the prequels on DVD. And I have the original trilogy on 4K Blu-ray. And I also have the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy is not really that good, but I decided to get this because, well, I'm a completionist at times. Although I kind of stopped collecting every Star Wars movie that I could find. And yeah, and of course I have the 4 Indiana Jones movie collection, which includes Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and The Last Crusade, and Kingdom of Crystal Skull. I do not have the 5th movie, and I think I'm not going to get the 5th movie anytime soon. I refuse to get that one. But anyways, back to the first 3 films. Raiders of the Lost Ark, by far one of my favorite of all of this. Whenever I would rewatch Indiana Jones, I would always revisit Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is absolutely by far one of my favorite Indiana Jones films out there. And of course, Temple of Doom. Really good sequel. Probably nowhere near as good as Raiders, but still is good nonetheless. And of course, The Last Crusade. By far one of my favorite third films, and it was one of the greatest last entries to Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones 4. But yeah, it was overall really good. And Kingdom of Crystal Skull. It was nowhere near as good as the original 3, but it's entertaining nonetheless. And of course, I also have the Back to the Future trilogy. Then of course I have one of the best cult classic films and one of the best films of the 90s, and by far one of my favorite movies of all time, Pulp Fiction. By far one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino films out there, and by far one of his best, and Quentin Tarantino's first directorial debut, alongside with Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez doing their own independent movies, like Kevin Smith directing Clerks and Robert Rodriguez. I don't really remember what movies he directed, but yeah, and this is Quentin Tarantino's first directorial debut, and it's absolutely wonderful. Everything about this movie is great. The story, the writing, the characters, everything like that. It does a really amazing job playing with the story. It does a really amazing job with the characters. And it does a really amazing job with the really going on thrilling story. And just something that is absolutely wonderful. It is overall pretty good. I really like the performances from John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, and so many of the other actors. They did a really amazing job with this movie. Absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen this movie, where the hell have you been? You should definitely watch this if you are not into Quentin Tarantino's work. This is a must-watch. It is a beloved classic. Then, of course, I have Prometheus and the sequel to Prometheus, Alien Covenant. Prometheus wasn't a bad movie. I thought it was overall pretty good at best. I thought they did a really amazing job with what they could do with telling the story. And I understand this movie has been getting a lot of hate for something like they didn't show the xenomorph until half at the end. And I really wish that they could have done much better. And then we have Alien Covenant. Easily by far the weakest of the Alien trilogy, alongside with Prometheus. Yeah, there were a lot of things I didn't really like for this film, and this movie has basically this movie starts to make me wonder what the hell was wrong with this. I mean, yeah, I have The Namesake on DVD. By far one of the best indie films out there. Absolutely awesome. I'm planning to do a underrated film and analysis and essay video on this pretty soon. But overall, it's a pretty good movie and it's definitely enjoyable. If you haven't seen this one, I do recommend you to give it a watch. It is absolutely wonderful. I found this movie when we were watching this in class last year, and my professor recommended me to see this movie, and I decided to rewatch this movie again, and what do I think? It's a pretty good movie. Then, of course, I have Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2. One of my favorite Quentin Tarantino films of all time. Absolutely wonderful. For a guy who likes anime and who basically likes really great storytelling and basically, yeah, really good movie overall. These are by far one of the best movies. The first one, I really liked the flashback scene where it was animated by Production IG, the same people who animate on Ghost in the Shell, and also did a bit of the animation of Fooly Cooly. And yeah, they did a really amazing job with animating the flashback. Absolutely wonderful. The first Kill Bill has like this anime feel into it, and they did a really amazing job with that. And it's absolutely wonderful, very inspirational. The second one, pretty good, absolutely wonderful, and yeah, it's been a while since I've actually seen these movies, since I was in middle school back then when I first saw these movies. Then of course I have Paranorman, already talked about this, and I have The Polar Express, a classic Christmas movie and a Christmas movie that me and my family used to watch for Christmas, for the holidays. Vice, very, it's not my taste. It's not what I expect to be, but, and yeah, it's not my taste. Man Up. And I have one of my favorite anime movies of all time, Metropolis. Absolutely wonderful. It is a classic. This movie scared the shit out of me when I was very young. I remember watching this for the first time. I remember I had like I remember it giving me like this weird trippy moment as a kid. I remember I had a fun time watching it.
It was absolutely pretty cool. It's by far one of my favorite anime films ever made. It was made by the same guy who did Astro Boy, and it was also made by Ketshiro Otomo, who made Akira. And this is an overall good follow-up to Akira whatsoever. But then again, yeah, really good overall. Really great anime film. If you haven't seen this one, I do recommend to give it a watch. I'm going to be doing a video essay on that in another video. Of course, I have Heavy Metal, an absolute awesome animated film, and one of the best R-rated films out there. Absolutely wonderful. It is really, really insane. It is not like what I expected. The music is really catchy in this, and everything about this movie is overall really good. The animation and the story, the characters and everything like that, absolutely wonderful. Pretty good overall. And by far one of the best R-rated films out there. Absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen this movie, I do recommend it to give it a watch. Of course, I have by far one of the best dark comedy films out there. American Psycho. Overall pretty good. By far one of my favorite dark comedies out there. And one of my favorite dark films. And one of the best horror films and thriller slasher ever. Absolutely wonderful. I really like about how Christian Bale does a really good job on playing this serial killer, this rich serial killer, Patrick Bateman, and I really like about whether it tells about whether this is in his head or not, and it's up for the viewer to decide. And basically, yeah, especially with the ending. The ending is very confusing, but it's a bit twisted, and you don't really know whether this is in his head or not, but yeah. And it heavily implies that this is probably in his head, but again, it's up for the viewer to decide. Absolutely wonderful. My favorite film ever. Haven't seen it, I do recommend you to give it a watch again. And then of course I have Predator 2018. Yeah, this movie's shit. It's really bad. The worst of the Predator franchise. Step Brothers. Absolutely funny. Pretty cool. And yeah, this is a really funny film that I definitely really like to watch over and over again. Happy Time Murders. Guilty Pleasure. Gulliver's Travels. One of the most shittiest films out there. Absolutely shit. It's just nothing but just pure shit. But yeah, I'll definitely try to do like a big ass reviews video on this if I could have the chance. I'm doing a part 2 on Get Smart. But yeah, I'm going to continue, but right now it's been a little complicated because I am pretty busy with a lot of stuff. But yeah. And of course I have the Daredevil Dare Flick film. Jackass Forever. And of course I also have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. Which is by far one of the most shittiest films out there, and one of the most terrible TV to film adaptations out there. Absolutely terrible. I understand what they were trying to do, but the way how they did it is executed pretty poorly. But I do like some of the performances, like with J.C. David Frank, may he rest in peace, as J.C. David Frank as Tommy. He did a really amazing job in this film, and he does give the really good performance. It's pretty sad that this movie is not really good, but yeah. And I'm also hoping to see the Legendary of the White Dragon for sometime next year. And then I got my favorite animated film of all time, and one of the most underrated films out there, Rango. A really good movie, absolutely wonderful, very underrated. It's not colorful like any anthropomorphic animal films I've seen. It's not like Zootopia. It's not like anything that I've seen. It's absolutely wonderful. It has like this Wild West setting, this cowboy Wild West setting that it has, and it did a really amazing job with it. There's a lot of funny jokes here and there. It has some really great voice acting. Really great animation from Industrial Light and Magic. Absolutely wonderful. It is pretty good overall. If you haven't seen this movie, I do recommend it to give it a watch. It is absolutely wonderful. I will do an underrated film review on that someday. And of course I have
Zack Snyder's Justice League, by far one of my favorite films ever made, and one of my favorite films that Zack Snyder has ever made. Absolutely wonderful. It is pretty good overall. It is absolutely amazing. It's pretty sad that this movie took years to get it released. That wasn't until when we got the hashtag Save the Snyder Cut trend, and of course the Snyder Cut arrives. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's much more better than the theatrical cut or Justice League. But basically, yeah, it's absolutely pretty cool, and it's pretty wonderful for a 4-hour long film. Absolutely wonderful, and it's really great. It's too bad that it's no longer on HBO Max, or now as it called Max. But yeah, I'm just gonna call it HBO Max from now on. And of course, I have my favorite action movie and one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time, Die Hard. Absolutely wonderful. Really great movie. I've watched this twice with my dad. I remember seeing it as a kid. I remember I had a fun time watching it, though he doesn't really like me saying yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. But yeah, absolutely wonderful. And one of my favorite Christmas movies out there. Next to Home Alone and Tokyo Godfathers, which we'll talk about later. Then I have Dirty Grandpa. Yeah. Robert De Niro and Zac Efron in this movie. It's kind of funny, and it has like a lot of edgy humor in it. But yeah, it's kind of funny overall. Then of course I have Superman the movie. By far one of my favorite superhero movies ever. God, this is such a classic. I remember we rented this from Blockbuster a few times. I remember we rented it from Blockbuster. Then after that, I returned the movie to Blockbuster and rented Superman 2 and Spider-Man 2. And basically, yeah, this is absolutely wonderful. By far one of my favorite superhero films out there. And brilliant directing by Richard Donner. It's pretty cool overall. And you haven't seen... Obviously, you really need to see this movie. I mean, this is such a classic. This is like the good old days of old superhero movies. License to Kill, one of the most underrated James Bond films out there, and one of my most interesting and my favorite James Bond film. And of course I have Clerks 3, by far one of my favorite movies of last year, and by far one of my favorite movies ever. Absolutely wonderful. Clerks 3 was pretty amazing. I overall just really loved this movie. And yeah, it's also pretty sad that Dante died in the ending. I think that the way how it did meta jokes is pretty good and is actually well handled. A lot more better than what the MCU has done recently to try to do meta jokes and try to do some references here and there. But I don't think any can do as good as Clerks. And Clerks 3 does a really great job on concluding Dante and Randall's story. While Clerks 2 was a great conclusion for Dante and Randall getting back the store, Clerks 3, I think, did a really amazing job on concluding more of Dante and Randall's story. And yeah, absolutely wonderful. Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I haven't seen this yet. Then of course I have Turbo. And I have The Ugly Truth. I do not know why I own this movie, but yeah. And I have Anchorman 1 and Anchorman 2. By far one of the best and most funniest films that Will Ferrell has ever done in his career. They're absolutely really funny. Absolutely wonderful. I remember seeing the first Anchorman movie. I remember seeing Anchorman 2 as well, though. Yeah, my dad didn't really like these movies, but yeah, I absolutely enjoy these movies overall, and they're just overall pretty cool, and basically, yeah, they're really funny, they're enjoyable. Not my favorites, but they were really enjoyable. Of course, I also have Bridesmaids. Yep, Bridesmaids. And I have The Sitter, one of the most underrated films out there, and one of the most underrated films that Jonah Hill has ever done. It is absolutely great. By far one of my favorite films ever made. Absolutely wonderful. I really like Jonah Hill as basically this character who basically is in love with this girl and considers her to be his girlfriend. And we also see that he's having problems with looking for a new job, although he just sits his ass and watches TV all day. And then one day he gets a call and gets this job opportunity to be a babysitter, and he becomes like this role model to these kids, even though that he didn't really like these kids from the start, considering about how these kids are annoying him and how they are getting him into trouble. And he's basically getting into a lot of situations, like mainly with the drug dealer and getting in trouble with his girlfriend for being late and all that. And his girlfriend obviously is having a crisis, but yeah, there's like a lot of hijinks ensue. Overall, this is by far one of my favorite films that Jonah Hill has ever done in his career, where Jonah Hill plays like this character who basically is just having to take care of his own shit while he is also being this role model to these kids who are having issues, like this girl who is putting on too much makeup, and this kid who has like a lot of anxiety issues, and this other kid who just likes to blow up bathrooms. And basically, yeah, absolutely funny movie. By far one of my favorite films ever, and one of my favorite movies in general. I haven't seen this movie, go watch it. This is absolutely wonderful. This is by far the most underrated film that Jonah Hill has ever done in his career. Then of course I have the Lego Movie on DVD. By far one of my favorite animated films of all time, and absolutely wonderful. It's really cool. I just overall just really liked everything about this movie, and the way how Phil Lord and Chris Miller has done this movie is overall pretty good. Absolutely wonderful. Then of course I have Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. Really shitty movie, and this was supposed to be a pilot for Power Rangers Turbo for the new season of Power Rangers at this time, but yeah. Still, I keep it though because it's kind of a nostalgic memory. I remember seeing it, and I remember I enjoyed it. Of course, we have Pineapple Express. By far one of my most favorite and one of the most funniest comedies out there. Pretty cool. I really like the car chase scene. I really like the action and the hijinks ensue that Seth Rogen and James Franco get into. And yeah, it's absolutely pretty funny. Yeah. I also have Black Adam. Enjoyable movie overall. Enjoyable. And gotta say, it's actually the most enjoyable superhero movie I've ever seen from last year. And of course I have Team America World Police. By far one of the most funniest films by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, I believe, the creators behind South Park, because this was made by the same people who worked on South Park. Absolutely pretty wonderful. It's pretty funny. It's one of the most funniest films I've ever seen. So now let's take a little break from those other Blu-rays and let's focus on basically this shelf. Basically these are like my TV show shelves that I have here. Like I have Spider-Man the Animated Series on DVD, Spider-Man Unlimited on DVD, Doom Patrol the first season on DVD, and Titan Seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray, Young Justice Season 3 on DVD, this Superman short collections, and Kamen Rider Ryuki, by far one of my favorite TV shows ever, and Star Wars Rebels Season 1, and I also have Spawn the Animated Series, Transformers, Ninjago, Flash, Smallville. I have the majority of Smallville on DVD. I have some other DVDs of Smallville, although yeah, I might show that in another video. And of course I have Power Rangers. Now if you guys didn't know me, and I'll say this again, I'm a huge fan of Power Rangers. I love Power Rangers growing up. I remember seeing it a bit on Fox Kids, then I remember watching the series again when it was on Jetix, and I collected all the DVDs when Power Rangers was leaving Netflix. Well, most of the DVDs of my favorite seasons, like I have Power Rangers Time Force, I have Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, and Jungle Fury. Jungle Fury being by far my most favorite. And yeah, I have Spectacular Spider-Man on Blu-ray. I have Star Trek The Next Generation on Blu-ray. I have Invincible on DVD, Spider-Man the New Animated Series, and Star Wars The Clone Wars on DVD Star Wars The Clone Wars on DVD, and then later on Blu-ray. And I also have my favorite TV show of all time, Chuck. Chuck is by far one of my favorite TV shows ever made. It is absolutely wonderful. I love the performances from Zachary Levi and Yvonne Strabanovsky. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But yeah, it is absolutely a wonderful show. If you haven't seen the show, I do recommend it to give it a watch. And of course, I have Modern Family. And I also have DVDs of The Office, though I might show it in another video. And of course, we have my MCU Blu Ray collection here. Now, I remember I was heavily obsessed with the MCU as a kid. I remember I had a fun time watching all these MCU movies back to back when Endgame was coming out around that time, and Phase 3 was about to end. And of course, we are now in the 2020 decade, and we also have movies like these over here. Like, we have Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Legends of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, and of course Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, I am a huge fan. I was a huge fan of the MCU. I was a huge fan. Not anymore, because Marvel has been dying down in quality and storytelling. And yeah, Marvel is not doing very well as it used to be back then. Their Disney Plus shows haven't been doing really well, and some were not that really interesting other than Loki, since Loki is easily one of the best Marvel Disney Plus shows out there. And What If was actually enjoyable, although I don't know if it's good per se, because it was kind of rushed a bit, and I feel like that the first season was really rushed. I did see the trailer for the second season recently, and I do hope that it does improve, and so far it looks like a big improvement from the first season, and it looks very exciting. However, I'm going to keep my expectations really low for that. But yeah, I have all the MCU movies here, from the Infinity Saga, from Iron Man 1 all the way up to Spider-Man Far From Home. And yeah, I absolutely really enjoy collecting all these. I'm a bit of a completionist when it comes to certain franchises, like mainly with the Infinity Saga with the MCU, or basically with Power Rangers and Dragon Ball Z stuff, Yu Yu Hakusho, and some favorite TV shows like Chuck, or probably Modern Family maybe, and some Kamen Rider shows like Kamen Rider Ryuki and Doom Patrol, and The Boys. I also have The Boys on Blu Ray, and yeah, and also Star Wars, Quentin Tarantino's directorial debuts, and of course the Back to the Future trilogy, Indiana Jones, and of course the Studio Ghibli movies, the VSQ films, and basically that's about it, sort of. But yeah, the MCU has been pretty good, but over time it starts to lose quality, and it kind of starts dying down in quality, and not a lot of people, including myself, are going to see these movies anymore. I did not see the Marvels in theaters, and I heard about how bad the movie really was, and I basically am just avoiding and just probably stop watching every Marvel movie now, and stop watching every Marvel content in general, since I am having some problems with trying to get into Marvel content. I want to try to get into Marvel content, but I can't. There are some good superhero movies that have been released this year. Like, there was Shin Kamen Rider, and there was also Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Guardians Volume 3. But yeah. Yeah, the MCU is now dying down in quality. It's nowhere near as good as it used to be. So I'm just gonna stick with the Infinity Saga. But yeah, the only good Marvel movies that have been released were basically Spider-Man No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But yeah, I used to be a fan of the MCU, though not anymore. And I just don't really like the MCU anymore, and I'm just stopped watching every single MCU movie. I've recently rewatched Ghost in the Shell in theaters. I recently rewatched Godzilla 2000 in theaters, and even Scarface. And sometime later in the weekend, I'm gonna go see Saving Private Ryan, and probably, if there's time, Napoleon, the Napoleon movie that is released starring Joaquin Phoenix. But yeah, I overall just really liked how they basically set up every single movie throughout the Infinity Saga. and then we get to Phase 4. I do not have any of the Marvel Disney Plus shows on Blu-ray, mainly because the Marvel Disney Plus shows are not really that good to collect, other than Loki, but I don't know, I'm debating on it, so yeah, I'm probably not gonna get every single Marvel movie and show that comes out on physical media. So yeah, I just stopped collecting these after seeing Marvel movies dying down in quality, and yeah, I do not want to see a Marvel movie that is bad, and I do not want to review a Marvel movie that is gonna obviously suck, and basically, yeah. And at this point, I think I'm kind of done with Marvel, and I'm kind of done with the MCU, and yeah. Although I'll always still have its fun memories with the Infinity Saga and some good modern MCU movies like No Way Home and Guardians Volume 3. I have more stuff here that you see in the background in some of my videos. Like I have Batman the Animated Series on Blu-ray. This also includes Batman Mask of the Phantasm on Blu-ray. And I also have The Boys Seasons 1, 2, and 3, Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I have Star Trek Lower Decks, and Justice League Unlimited. I do have Justice League on DVD, but yeah. And of course I have Dragon Ball Z on Blu-ray. Yep, I'm a completionist when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, and when it comes to some other franchises other than the MCU and Star Wars, like the VSQ films, Dragon Ball Z, Attack on Titan, Yu Yu Hakusho, and basically, yeah. Then of course, yeah. And I'm also going to be showing you some of the Dragon Ball films that I have here. Of course, I have some of my favorite anime films of all time. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. I really like Battle of Gods a bit more often, considering about how it does a really great job on the storytelling and everything like that. It does a really great job on everything like that. And overall, it is by far one of my favorite Dragon Ball films out there. One of my favorite Shonen Jump films and favorite anime movies in general. Resurrection F was overall pretty good and is by far my favorite, though I think Battle of Gods is more rewatchable, but yeah. And I have the other Dragon Ball films here. The other Dragon Ball films, basically I have Dragon Ball Super Broly and Dragon Ball Superhero. Super Broly is overall pretty good and is absolutely wonderful. I really like about how they did very well with Broly's character. Much more better than how he was portrayed in the original Dragon Ball Z films, like Dragon Ball Z Legendary Super Saiyan Broly, and basically, yeah. And I really like how Broly is portrayed a lot more better here than how he was in those films, and how they give him more character, they give him more of a personality, and they made me feel more, like I want to relate to Broly a bit more, and yeah, they did a really amazing job with Broly's character here, and it's absolutely wonderful. And of course I have Dragon Ball Superhero. By far one of my favorite movies of 2022, of last year, and one of my favorite movies of all time. Absolutely wonderful. And my first anime film that I have seen in theaters, though not my first foreign film, of course. I think my first foreign film will have to go to either Metropolis or Memories. But yeah. It's absolutely pretty wonderful. I overall just really like this movie. It's pretty cool overall. I really like about how they did an amazing job with Gohan's character and Piccolo's character too. They made more of how they portrayed Piccolo and Gohan right here. And basically, let's be honest, in most of Dragon Ball, they haven't been really portrayed too often very well. But yeah, they are absolutely by far one of my favorite characters, and seeing them in this movie was absolutely pretty cool. And in terms of better storytelling, it is pretty great. I cannot wait for Dragon Ball Daima when it comes out, but yeah. Both these films are absolutely pretty awesome. If you haven't seen these, I do recommend you to check these out, although I recommend you to just watch all of Dragon Ball, because you're probably going to not understand about this. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, these movies are a good watch. These movies are a must-watch. They're classics. They're amazing. And of course, I have A Man Called Otto. By far, one of the most saddest films ever seen. And yeah, brilliant performances from Tom Hanks. And just by far one of my favorite films of last year or this year, I believe. I don't know when this movie came out, because this movie came out around January, which is like a terrible month for movies to be released. And yeah, overall really great movie. Absolutely wonderful. And this movie overall makes me cry at some points. Oh, I have something here. I have Knocked Up on DVD. Really funny comedy, and I really like the performances from Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl. Pretty cool movie overall. And of course, I also have The Mighty Seven Beginnings, featuring Stan Lee. I really enjoy this movie. This is a really fun animated film that Stan Lee has ever done. And yeah, this is one of my favorite films that Stan Lee has ever done. Absolutely wonderful. It's kind of sad that this movie didn't really gain as much attention as it should have until it gained a cult following years later, but yeah. And of course I have the rest of my anime Blu-rays here that I have. Yep, all my anime Blu-rays here, including here. And of course that's my Trigun DVD. And of course I have most of my anime movie Blu-rays here. Some that I have shown you, and some that I haven't. Like I haven't shown you Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, and Trigun Badlands Rumble, and so many others. And of course I have the Studio Ghibli movies. Yep. But let's focus back here. Alright, so here's what I have. I have Cowboy Bebop, the entirety of the complete series, and I have Cowboy Bebop the movie, by far one of my favorite anime films of all time. Samurai Champloo, Space Dandy, Neon Genesis Evangelion, One Punch Man, Death Note, Space Patrol Luluco, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Season 1, My Hero Academia, including the 3 My Hero Academia films, which I'm going to show. Hold on. I have the 3 My Hero Academia films here. Like My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, and My Hero Academia World's Heroes Mission. One of the best anime films ever made, and one of the best superhero movies ever made in general. Absolutely wonderful. I regret not seeing these movies in theaters, and I was hoping to see like the 4th movie in theater, and we are getting a 4th movie eventually. So yeah, I definitely cannot wait to see a 4th movie. And basically, yeah. But overall, these movies are all just pretty good, and they're pretty fun. They're absolutely wonderful. One of the best superhero movies ever made, and one of the best foreign films in general. And basically, yeah. Hold on. Yeah. And of course, I have One Piece. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of One Piece. One Piece is by far my favorite anime series of all time, and it's one of my favorite shows. I remember watching it when it was on 4Kids. I remember I had a fun time watching it, and revisiting the series years later now as an adult, it still manages to hold up well to this day, from what I remember anyway. But anyways, yeah. And I also have the 2 One Piece films here. I have the 2 One Piece films I have here, mainly One Piece Stampede, and of course One Piece Film Red. Stampede, I've seen it a bit, and I remember I heard about how good it is, and I have not been able to revisit this movie yet, but I am going to revisit it somehow eventually. And of course, One Piece Film Red. One Piece Film Red is by far one, if not the best One Piece films out there. One of my favorite anime films of all time, and my favorite anime film of last year, and my second anime film that I've seen in theaters. And it's absolutely pretty wonderful, and I overall just really like it. It's absolutely pretty wonderful. Unlike in some other endings with this, this movie has a really sad ending. Unlike with most of the One Piece films where most of them have a happy ending, this one has a really sad ending. And basically, it's heavily implied that the main antagonist of the movie, Uta, has basically died from eating all those mushrooms in order to keep her world alive, and in order for the people to make them sleep, and basically, yeah. But overall, it's just really cool. I also really like seeing the Red Pirates in this movie, like seeing Shanks and the rest of the crew teaming up with the Straw Hat Pirates. It's absolutely wonderful. Overall, pretty cool. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It is amazing. Especially if you're not a fan of One Piece, it is amazing. I am going to be showing you some of my anime Blu-rays in another video. I will be showing off my anime Blu-rays in a future video, so yeah. including my TV show physical media releases. I will be showing that off in another video. But yeah, I have some other things to show you. Like I have Vampire Hunter D and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. Vampire Hunter D, it was kind of all over the place. Like there were some things I really wish that they could have changed. But yeah, maybe make the story a little bit more, better. The pacing is a bit off. But yeah, it's still enjoyable to say the least, and it still is pretty cool. Still is pretty good. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. One of my favorite sequels of all time, and by far one of my favorite anime films out there. Alongside with Cowboy Bebop the movie, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and films like Perfect Blue, and Tokyo Godfathers, and everything like that. It's absolutely pretty wonderful, and it's a good movie to watch on Halloween. It's pretty cool overall. And by far an improvement, better pacing, better story, better characters, and basically, yeah. Sword of the Stranger on Blu Ray. I have not been able to see this yet, but from what I heard it's pretty good, and I have seen a bit in clips of the movie at times. I also have Perfect Blue on Blu Ray Steelbook. Absolutely wonderful. One of the best anime films of all time. One of my favorite anime films and favorite horror films in general. Absolutely wonderful. It has like this psychological thriller. It's basically like American Psycho, but it's more darker, and it's not really that much of a comedy. It's more like a dark thriller than a dark comedy. Then, of course, I have Paprika, a film made by Shredder Side Khan, the same director who worked on Perfect Blue and Tokyo Godfathers. This movie is basically like Inception, or should I say that Inception basically was heavily inspired by this movie, since this movie came out in 2006. Inception didn't come out yet until 2010. But yeah, it is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the most trippy. It's a lot more trippier than Inception, and basically, yeah, it's confusing, to say the least. It was a confusing movie to watch since I was very young, so yeah. First, I have my favorite Christmas movie of all time, Tokyo Godfathers. An absolutely wonderful film. It's absolutely wonderful. It's pretty cool overall. It has overall a really good story and a really good characters. It's a movie that I really loved as a kid. It's a movie that I watched over and over again when my parents rented it for me from Blockbuster, and I remember I had a fun time watching it. It's overall pretty cool. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It is a pretty great Christmas movie. It's absolutely wonderful. Then, of course, I have Air Force One and In the Line of Fire. Get off my plane. And I also have Transformers The Last Night. One of the most terrible of the Transformers movies, and basically just by far pretty much left on a cliffhanger, but I'm glad that basically Paramount decides to go back to the drawing board. Paramount and Hasbro decided to go back to the drawing board and basically reboot it with another Transformers film franchise, and basically, yeah, Last Night pretty much sucked. Then, of course, I have Ghostbusters 2016. Yeah, this movie sucks. And I also have Bumblebee and Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Bumblebee, it's enjoyable, but it's not really my favorite Transformer movie of all time. It's still really good nonetheless. It's still really enjoyable, but probably not my favorite, to say the least. Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. Blah, 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 blah. Really good overall. Really entertaining. Well, not really good. There are some flaws with this movie that I really wish that they could have fixed, but entertaining nonetheless. It's enjoyable. I like the action. I like the action. I like the characters, although they got Snake Eyes' origin a little bit wrong than how it was adapted from the toy line, but yeah. Of course, I have Ghostbusters Afterlife. I also have something special here. I have Ultraman vs. Red King. Yep. I haven't been able to open this yet, but yeah, I'm such a huge Tokusan Criterion fan, and I'm a bit of a completionist for that, and I'm also a big Ultraman fan. I love Ultraman. He's one of my favorite characters ever, and yeah, it's overall pretty cool, and I can't wait to watch this when I have the time, of course, because I'm pretty busy with some other things. Then I have Everything Everywhere All at Once, by far one of the best films of last year, and one of my favorite movies of last year, and probably my favorite movie of all time. Absolutely wonderful. It's so insane. It's overall really good. I really like the performances from Michelle Yeoh and from some other people here. They did a really amazing job with it, and yeah, absolutely wonderful. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It's amazing. Of course, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I have The Venture Brothers, the Raiden of the Blood of the Baboon. It's a very long time. The Venture Brothers, Raiden is the Blood of the Baboon Heart. Absolutely wonderful. It's a great conclusion to the Venture Brothers series overall. And I think this is a really good conclusion to the Venture Brothers series, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's overall just a really great conclusion to the Venture Brothers. Absolutely amazing. And yeah, I absolutely really liked about how they've written the characters very well. Dean was, I really wish that they, sorry about that. I really wish that they could have done more with his character. I really wish that they could have done a bit more, but because of runtime, yeah. But I overall really liked about some of the twists and turns, and even though you might feel a little bit disappointed, but then again, it's the Venture Brothers, so never underestimate the Venture Brothers for what it is, for some of the twists that basically you expected to be, just like with the orb, and basically, yeah. But yeah, overall, my favorite movie of this year, right next to Shin Kamen Rider and Suzume. And of course, I have Asteroid City. I haven't seen this yet, and I regret not seeing this movie in theaters, but I am planning to watch this movie eventually and try to do an analysis video on it somehow. And from what I heard it's really good. And of course, I have Prey on 4K Blu-ray. One of my favorite movies of last year. It's absolutely wonderful. I really liked about how they went back to formula with this movie. It's pretty cool overall. It's insane. It's absolutely wonderful. Overall, just really like this movie, and basically, yeah, it's a wonderful film overall. And yeah, if you haven't seen Prey, what are you waiting for? It's already out on 4K Blu-ray. But yeah, this movie's overall pretty cool. It brought back the Predator franchise from the grave, and it's a nice entry into the Predator franchise, bringing it back to formula and sending it in, basically this time before the events of the first Predator film. But yeah, absolutely wonderful. And of course, I have Transformers: Rise of the Beast. Absolutely wonderful. Really great movie. Probably my favorite Transformer movie out there. And by far one of my favorite movies of this year. And yeah, absolutely wonderful. And before we go, we also have... one minute here. We have the Studio Ghibli movies. Specifically, I have films like My Neighbor Totoro, one of the most childhood classic films out there, and one of my favorite childhood classic films. Really, really good. Ponyo, and of course I have Kiki's Delivery Service, one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films, my most favorite Studio Ghibli film. Absolutely wonderful. I remember seeing this as a kid. I remember when we watched this on TV, and I remember that my parents rented this movie for me from Blockbuster, and I remember returning this and getting Spirited Away and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And of course, I also have Spirited Away, one of the best animated films out there, one of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. By far one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films out there. My most favorite Studio Ghibli film. Princess Mononoke. My most favorite Studio Ghibli film, alongside with Nausicaa. Castle in the Sky. My two most favorite Studio Ghibli films, Howl's Moving Castle, and of course, The Wind Rises. Howl's Moving Castle is by far one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films. It's absolutely wonderful. I just overall really like the beauty of it. The voice acting, especially for the English dub, is pretty good. And The Wind Rises. This is my most favorite Studio Ghibli film. One of my favorite Studio Ghibli films out there. Absolutely wonderful. Prepare to watch the ending, because the ending will definitely make you cry at some point. And yeah. And that's about it for my Blu-ray and DVD collection. And basically, yeah. So guys, I think that's about it. I will be doing a TV show physical media collection and an anime Blu-ray collection video. at some point in the near future. I am going to do those in the near future, but yeah, I will do those in the near future. So yeah. Anyways, thanks guys for watching this video. Anime Blu-ray video will come up pretty soon, and a TV show collection video will also be coming up soon. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.